So as we journey through color field painting, we must deal with Rothko, who never really acknowledges the label of color field painter. Now, he will specialize in these large-scale canvases, resonating with emotive color, applied in the form of blocks of color hovering over some kind of duller background, generally speaking. Now, let's break that down a little bit. These are larger pieces because you're supposed to stand about 18 inches away, and when you do, it blocks out, again, just like with Pollock, all of the peripheral vision, so you are dealing with nothing more than the painting. This creates a sensory deprivation situation where your only form of conversation, your only dialogue is between you and the art. And when that happens, it draws out ideas from your own unconscious and subconscious in the way that it affects that train of thought that runs through your mind. As that train of thought changes, that is the interpretation. And those interpretations will change from day to day, even hour to hour, depending on your own personal experience. Now, he once said that I'm interested only in expressing basic human emotions, which to him means tragedy, ecstasy, doom, and so on. And the fact that a lot of people break down and cry when confronted with his pictures show that he communicates these basic human emotions. And you're saying they're going, really? Someone has a breakdown in front of a Rothko? But think about it this way. Many of us are uncomfortable in a silent room. We don't really like sensory deprivation. So to prevent that from happening, we frequently have music going or something else going on in the background. If you were forced to sit in a dark room where there's nothing else to look at except maybe a Rothko, or even a dark room without a Rothko, eventually you're going to have to deal with the emotions that are running through your head, and under certain circumstances, you could imagine having a breakdown. Now simply replace our darkened room with standing in front of a Rothko, you have much the same thing. It's actually not that unusual. We, simply as human beings, don't like that concept, so we try to avoid it. We're constantly trying to distract ourselves from actually spending time reflecting on our own minds, which is why more people don't actually meditate. That's why you have chants and everything to concentrate on instead of really digging into your own mind, and sometimes that can be particularly dangerous as well. Now, Rothko achieves major success during the mid-1950s, being tipped by Fortune magazine in 1954 as a promising investment. They actually put out an article saying, buy Rothko, it's a great investment. If you're ever wondering, should I buy art as an investment? The answer is no. Because the artists go through the same ups and downs that the stock market does. You do not want to be the guy who spent a record amount of money on a Van Gogh and then see it go the only direction it can if it was a record. Do not invest in art. Anyway, let's talk about one of Rothko's pieces. This is Untitled, also known as Red, Dark Green, and Green. You can see where the title comes from. Of course, it comes from the colors of the piece. And when you study Rothko, all of his pieces are untitled because he doesn't want to give us any ideas about what you're looking at. So, usually it's entitled and a year, and you have to make sure, if you ever research Rothko, that you're looking at the right piece and that the author you're reading is also looking at the same piece. So Rothko is one of those areas where you must use an illustration. So let's talk about Red, Dark Green, and Green. The title is self-explanatory. We have these three fields of color on a fairly neutral, sort of gray, nondescript tone. And the idea here is not that you're going to focus on all of it, but actually that you're going to focus on a piece of it, depending on where your mood sits. If you're particularly optimistic or upbeat, you'll probably look at the orange. If, on the other hand, you are a little more depressed, you might focus on the dark green. If you're simply calm or content, you might focus on the green. And when he creates these paintings, what he does is he uses washes of color. So we do get some texture. we do have something other than the color to look at. So for example, if you look at the green, you will notice that we see brush marks. And those brush marks give you something to look at. Maybe you see a form or a shape. Maybe you see my picture. An eye here, an eye here, here's a head. Yeah, now you can't unsee that picture. You will always see my portrait in Rothko's Untitled.